you're going to shoot yourself in the foot if you don't prepare adequately to have a real, brass tacks conversation about investing, whether it's flipping or holding rentals or whatnot. You have to be fluent because a savvy investor is going to sniff you out in a heartbeat.
So the big question is this: how do most agents who don't have access to the secrets that the top agents in our industry hoard to themselves grow and prosper in today's real estate environment? That's the question. And this video podcast is the answer. I'm Pat Hyben, and welcome to Real Estate Rockstars.
Real Estate Rockstars, this is Aaron Amuchastegui. Today, you are about to hear an interview that I did with Matt Bell. Matt started as an agent, and he decided that he wanted to represent mostly investors. So he was a buyer's agent for investors, and he went and transitioned from being, an agent to a consultant to an investor himself. And then he ended up buying hundreds of homes, helping a hedge fund buy hundreds of homes, and kind of growing. And so he gives tips on how to represent investors out there. He also talks about his new venture. He has this new venture coming out where if you're representing investors or buyers of all types, he has this new kind of way to help make sure that they're getting the best loan on the most unconventional stuff. So you're going to want to hear that, use those tips, and listen to today's podcast. So buckle up, be ready to learn. Real Estate Rockstars, this is Aaron Amuchastegui, back again to talk to you about real estate. Today, I get to talk to Matt Bell. I'm so excited. I've talked to Matt several times over the last few months, talking about all these new things that he's doing in the real estate world. He was an agent. He's been a consultant. He's been an investor. Now he has this kind of new product that's going to help all of you agents out there to be able to, help your buyers or help really expand different parts of your business. So I'm excited to talk about that with you guys today. And Matt, thanks for coming on. How's it going?
Hey, Aaron, great, man. Appreciate you having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. So where do you live? Tell everybody where you're calling in from today.
I'm based in Charleston, South Carolina. So the Southeast region is where I've been focused over the last half dozen years or so.
Awesome. So where were you born? Were you born out there?
I'm a bit of a mutt, to be perfectly honest. I was born in Colorado and lived in Wisconsin for a dozen years, and then actually in Louisville, Kentucky for about 20 and change until coming down south. So,
and is Charleston your favorite place of all those so far?
They all are really, really special in their own way. I mean, it's hard to beat the Rockies. I was in Loveland, Colorado, and it's gorgeous out there. But as far as living in a culturally rich, I guess, environment, Charleston's hard to beat. I mean, cobblestones and the French Quarter, and I think it was rated the #1 foodie city in the country. So there's fantastic eats, and I'm a total foodie, so that's good. And obviously having the ocean and all things vacation right at your fingertips is nice too.
Yeah, we're gonna have to add Charleston to our list. We're recent transplants out to Austin, Texas, and we've lived in several different places, and all of them have different things to offer, and that sounds very cool. So we're on here. I wanted to talk to you. There's so much stuff we're gonna dig into today, but I'd love to start with as a real estate agent. When you tell us about when did you start your career as a real estate agent? What did that first year look like? And you told me that you had actually been licensed over several states. So what was the first year like? How did that transition into being licensed in several different places?
Yeah, so it's I have a best friend, also my first mentor, who owns a turnkey brokerage in Augusta, Georgia, and I'd had over several years conversations with him about his business and what he was into, all the while being miserable in my pharmaceutical sales and medical sales jobs, and eventually decided that I was going to move down south. First task he gave me was to read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which so many of us can say as kind of a genesis point. But and then he said, get your license. So I was licensed in Kentucky, and then I relocated to Georgia and ended up getting licensed in Georgia, functioning as a buyer's agent for his turnkey investors and for his brokerage. So
Awesome. So buyer's agent and so was it mostly investors that was your pipeline and your specialty when you became an agent?
100%. Yeah. I did not fall into necessarily the traditional agency role. Kind of good and bad. I think I saw parts of the agency role, but not all of it. So, but that being said, it prepared me to jump into investing myself, which is kind of ultimately where I had wanted to end up. But yeah, my first year, at least maybe year and a half, I functioned as an agent, just trying to find the next good investment property for his investors, which were not just local. He had built up a regional profile and had a lot of people that were ready to buy. I just had to keep them fed. So I was bird dogging everything, looking on HUD Home Store and Home Path and Home Steps, and all the wholesalers were beating the door down, and I was trying to build that network. So it was a pretty exciting time, drinking from a fire hose, but fun nonetheless.
I think there's a lot of real estate markets out there like that right now, where there are a ton of investors, right? A ton of people that want to buy properties, and they want to get them for a deal. They want to get them for opportunities to flip or hold as rentals. So there's a lot of people willing to spend the money right now, but there isn't as much product. So, you shared about that example of, you were living that where these guys just needed deals. And so you ended up having to search all over the place. So you were their agent, but you were searching on MLS. But tell me about what that was like. How did you stay motivated in between spots when, it was getting harder and harder to find deals? And did you have any secrets out there other than just, working super hard and finding all those different places?
Yeah. So I was lucky because when I jumped in, as it relates to supply demand that you're alluding to, I was lucky in that it was the end of 2012 and 13, and supply outweighing demand. And then in the end, demand outweighing supply, which is definitely the case now. In 2012, 2013, we still had a lot of supply. And so it wasn't as hard as it is now. I was able to find plenty of deals on HUD Home Store and Home Path and Home Steps. Those are Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and HUD. So there was a lot of inventory. It was like shooting fish in a barrel, so to speak. And I had to adapt as it began to tighten. And that's where the wholesaler relationships came in, and trying to source deals that were not necessarily available from other agents.
So when you were an agent, you were focusing on deals for those investors. HUD Home Store, that one's still out there. There's still all sorts of websites out there to be able to do that. How long were you an agent before you started transitioning into actually buying some houses for yourself and becoming an investor? And what was that transition like? Did you know from the very first deal you did as an agent that eventually you wanted to be an investor, or did something happen that you made that shift and change your mindset?
I was actually lucky enough to get into some deals early. My mentor or I guess first business partner who owned the brokerage in Augusta got me into a few different deals. I did a creative financing deal, owner financing, for one of my first deals. I bought and flipped a couple of houses. I was starting into the investor world, within the first few months. The goal was originally to learn the game, and then go back to Louisville, Kentucky and do what he was doing, but with kind of my own spin. And generally was walking houses from a construction and an agent perspective, and was just trying to learn. I think that was the big thing early on, was just trying to get my bearings, trying to get to a place where I could add value, because, when you don't know what you don't know, it's awfully tough to help others, much less yourself. So it was a big invest in myself period, which catapulted me into some other opportunities.
Yeah. I think agents out there should always be taking those opportunities to learn, invest in themselves, going through that process. We probably have a lot of agents listening out there that either represent investors or want to represent investors. What advice would you give them? What are the things you think of, if you're dealing with an investor, here's something you need to think about. Here's a way to get more investors. Here's a way to keep investors happy.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the first thing is what I was just alluding to is being prepared for those conversations. I mean, most of the investors I know are very blunt, very to the point, very like experienced, frankly. And so you're going to shoot yourself in the foot if you don't prepare adequately to have a real, brass tacks conversation about investing, whether it's flipping or holding rentals or whatnot. You have to be fluent because a savvy investor is going to sniff you out in a heartbeat. The very first thing I did, and I'll never forget this, was I remember I had burned through a bunch of the money that I had pulled from my 401k to move down to Augusta and take a shot. And I'll never forget just being kind of on the brink of giving up. And so there's a couple things that I remember vividly. One was staying the course and choosing to push through being uncomfortable. I think that's really important in any walk of life. And then secondly, I'll never forget Tyson, my mentor, saying, you need to start to invest in yourself beyond reading some books here and there. Right. And so I ended up going to an event called Family Reunion. I don't know if you're familiar. It's a Keller Williams
huge event. We just had it last week. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a Keller Williams gathering. I mean, it's like 50,000 agents, and they have all kinds of breakouts and really good content, whether it's from lead gen to contracts to investing to building teams or whatnot. So that was a real eye opener, just being around people that weren't messing around, pros. I mean, there's $10 million agents with KW all over the place. And, there's a reason why they stay with Keller Williams, right? It's because the support and education and resources made available to them is second to none from my experience. Again, I don't have a very robust agency years of experience and or contracts. I think I ended up writing about 150 contracts as a buyer's agent, purchasing 150 homes. I should say I wrote probably 300 or 400 offers. But anyway, that was the other thing early on that I vividly remember, was pushing myself, saying, man, I don't have, whatever it was back then, $1,500 to buy a ticket and fly to, I don't even know. I might have been New Orleans or something like that years and years ago. But I did it. And again, I was uncomfortable, but I pushed through it. And I think it once again catapulted me a little bit from the development standpoint, from a fluency standpoint, and just general kind of real estate knowledge standpoint. So definitely the big things early on are to reinvest in yourself and reinvest in your business. I'll always say that till I'm blue in the face.
And as an investor too, when agents would bring me things, I think the extra things I would add, you were talking about like being prepared and knowing your numbers, or they're going to sniff that out too. I think it's okay just to ask the investor, hey, like, how do you look at deals? What's the most important thing for you to see? Because you want to be able to, like you said, like some of them, they're kind of in a hurry, or they're seeing a bunch of different deals. So being able to kind of package that with Cliff Notes, whether it's an email or a text or whichever. If you send an investor something, the next time they're going to, somebody sends me something and I go, okay, well, how much will it rent for? What year was it built? What's the bed bath count? Right. And then they reply back. So you can figure out that first conversation with that investor to see what was important. And then the next time, if you're an agent, now you repackage that too. So for me, I think I totally agree with your point that it's about having the knowledge and having the answers, but then also how can you get, figure out which answers they really want quickly and easily to kind of get your foot in the door.
Sure.
Or to get past, square one.
Yeah. And then setting appropriate expectations, right? I mean, that's a great point you just made, is understanding the buy box of any single or group of investors. It's critical because that's the only way you're going to be able to put things in front of them that fit them. That's a very fundamental way to bring value, right? Even if you're not super savvy and haven't done hundreds of deals, as long as you understand what somebody is looking for and can provide some opportunities within that buy box, you're definitely ahead of the game. I mean, that's a big part of it for sure.
Yeah, and that's great advice for agents wanting to represent investors, or just agents representing people. right? Really, truly understanding what they want, what they need, how you're going to get there, what they're looking for. An investor buy box is a fancy way of saying, oh, he wants to buy houses that are, this age or this size or this price. But buyers have a buy box too. Now for them, it's a lot more personalized. They want a 3-car garage. They want a yard big enough for this. They want this in their kitchen and that sort of thing. But it's really understanding what that buy box is, helping them find it, and then, being able to quickly source through it, because there's only so much stuff that's out there. Real Estate Rockstars, this is Aaron Amuchastegui. And as you know, when you've been hearing these episodes, so many of our guests give us lots of free gifts and share the tools they've been using to become successful. We've got free real estate tools, scripts, ebooks, marketing materials, and more. We keep track of everything in our vault, and it's updated with new items each and every week. If you want access to that stuff, it's totally free for being a listener. All you have to do is go to agentsuccesstoolbox.com, agentsuccesstoolbox.com, and get your free gifts now. So you were an agent, you were transitioning I think you talked about how you got from a couple states, but you ended up doing it licensed in more than 4 states. That was all as buyer's agent for investments?
Primarily, yeah. About a year and change into agency, I was living in Augusta, Georgia, and in walks a hedge fund, and a couple different things happened. I was prepared for the conversation, number one, which is a big part of it. But they had called around to a handful of brokerages trying to find somebody to represent them. And thankfully, I was fluent enough at the time to have the conversation. We set the appointment. Two of the principals came into the office, and Tyson, my mentor and business partner, and I sat down with them and won their business. It was a funny scene because, the buyer's agent, who's not as experienced, is chomping at the bit. And then the savvier of the two of us, Tyson, was definitely, I think, exercising some doubt, some restraint. They came in, they said, we're going to buy 100 houses from you, this year. And of course, I'm just like, yeah, right. And Tyson is the cue the eye roll. I'll believe it when I see it, right? Because he had heard this from others that had come to town before. And anyway, they did. I ended up, I think we bought 130 homes that first full 12-month cycle with the fund. So yeah, a shot out of a can into earning some good commissions, but also learning the investor world, specifically from an institutional standpoint.
I had some of those same conversations in Northern California, 2013, of the guys coming in going, "Hey, I want to buy this many houses," and they bought thousands. They came in, they put us out of business back then, and and everybody had to change their plan and be nimble. So you've ended up, so you got to represent a lot of people like that, multiple states, multiple things. Then you started doing investments for yourself. How many investments did you do in the last year? And what did those investments look like? What was the price? Where are the cities, rentals, flips, that sort of stuff?
Yeah. So we believe primarily in an asset-based decision-making model. I firmly believe that sometimes it's a better rental than it is a flip. Sometimes it's better to assign a contract and let someone else buy it, or take it down and list it, for instance. I mean, there's just a bunch of different things you can do with any given asset. And it's kind of a mix of the asset itself, but also where are you as it relates to your cash flow position. If I'm going to take on a flip, that could be 5-6 months down the road before I see a payday versus assigning the contract or listing it immediately or whatnot, and accelerating that a little bit. But sometimes the bigger spreads come on those flips. And so you really have to weigh out kind of the pros, cons of that. So Augusta, Georgia, and Columbia, South Carolina were primarily where we focused the last couple of years. I left the fund about 2 and change. And I had started an operating business in the last year that I was with the fund, primarily to be a feeder for the fund. As we started to see those MLSs tighten up, we knew we were going to have to start sourcing properties elsewhere. And so it was nice to have a company to go to when I left the fund. And a company that already had a little bit of a footprint and a little bit of a business model and a little infrastructure. But the last 2 years have been a challenge, man, going from, never ending money and overcoming any mistake with just throwing some more dollars at it to, hey, now this is on my dime. And those lessons get a lot more painful. So I believe I think we did 73 transactions last year, which was down significantly from the year prior. I think we were in the low 120s last year, and it was a really good year 2 years ago. And then last year we ended up kind of having a hard reset in October. We parted ways with our CEO and needed to head in a different direction. So we are in process of rebooting the system. Very much burned it down and are trying to rebuild it the right way this time, something that's a lot more sustainable and a lot more consistent. But yeah, I mean, when you say 73 and feel defeated, I know there's a lot of people out there that think very differently. And maybe that's just one of the things that I've taken from the fund experience, was just how I view scale is definitely different than it once was.
Well, every agent out there should try to think of, you want to set goals and realistic goals, but you also want to, reach for the sky. And, that's why I tell people, like, you're coming up with that 5-year vision. So don't let 73 feel like, oh, I've got nothing I can learn from this guy. The idea, maybe that's your 3-year, maybe that's your 5-year, because this year you're doing 10. But being able to see, we learn, I've had to tear down and rebuild my businesses several different times, and you're going through that now. But it's also about every time learning, and if you lose a listing appointment, you can take that and say, all right, now I'm going to learn and go to the next one. If you lose a deal, you can figure out what that is and move to the next one. And when you're getting up to, so many deals, and we also have tons of listeners that are super experienced real estate agents that are doing just that, right? They're taking those, the things that go wrong, they're learning from them, they're seeing how they can excel. One of the things you said was, you look at an asset base, you look at a house, and sometimes you say, this one's a good rental. Sometimes you say, this one is a better flip than a rental. And other times you say, let's just wholesale it. So in just 1 minute, try to explain why you would pick a rental, why you would pick a flip, or why you would pick a wholesale. Just an example of what that really means around that $120,000 price point.
Yeah, it's time and money are the two big factors in the decision making. If we are in a position where we spend lots and lots of money on marketing every month, and so it's tough to go a couple months without significant business, a couple really good deals. And so sometimes we need to take a contract that we put under contract with a distressed seller, for instance. Sometimes we need to go ahead and sell that contract because it's a much quicker turn. I could put something under contract and wholesale it to our buyers list generally in 30 days or less. And we will definitely go in that direction with an asset if we are in a cash flow light position that we need to recap. So that's kind of a time and money component. Rental, I believe, is when we have a lot more capital and aren't necessarily pressed, and we can hold some, or we can allocate some of our resources to a long-term hold. I definitely want to have long-term holds. It's part of my business plan, is to build a retirement essentially for me and my family. And then the flip is, hey, the spread's too sweet here. Are we in a position where we have time in order to maximize the dollars in the deal? We're trying to get it about the same price point across all three, because you definitely make your money on the buy. It just it depends, right? It depends on where you are cash flow wise and where you are from a need standpoint on both time and money.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So for you guys, it's about, if it's a deal, then it's looking at it and saying, can we buy more right now, or should we flip it, or do we need money? There's, I think, something to add. I think that I've had the same experience, but some different things for us too. Some houses just aren't going to cash flow as good rentals. What we see as houses get nicer and nicer and price points get higher and higher, the ROI to make it a rental is a lot less. You know,
Right.
where it could be like $1 million house rents for, $5,000 or $6,000 a month, but $100,000 house rents for $1,000 a month. Right. So as you get, there's also some decisions like that happen with us. Now, if you're buying all in that same price point, it's all the same deal. That helps you get your focus, and it's about time and money.
Right.
And so that makes a lot of sense. I was kind of expecting maybe some of those other answers, but that's, as we jump around, that's probably why you started your new thing, right? Like, so the new thing that you're focused on, that you were telling me about, is really, from that problem, you wanted to solve a problem about, what about these deals that people have that they couldn't fund, they didn't have enough cash for, they're worried about time. Tell us about your new gig. What are you launching, and why is it going to help an agent out there?
Yeah, so we're just out of the gate with our most recent business venture, and it was definitely, to your point, born from some of the frustrations as an operator that we experienced in different states. It's Easy Button Lending is the name of the company that we've just launched. And we can do lending in all 50 states, all deal types, all credit profiles. It, I believe, is if not the most comprehensive, certainly one of the most comprehensive offerings that's ever been out there. Kind of like the lending tree of the private money or hard money world, if you will. One of the big challenges with private money or hard money is that it's fragmented, right? So like somebody trying to find hard money for a flip in North Carolina is going to find a different answer or available answer than somebody in Indianapolis, Indiana, right? A lot of the lenders out there only do several states. They only do certain types of deals. For instance, I worked with Lending Home, who's a large fix and flip lender based out of California, and they only did fix and flip, and they only did 26 states. Yet they did 1.4 billion in underwriting last year. So it's a massive opportunity. But when I asked them if they had any desire to go national, right, to be in all 50 states, the answer was, well, maybe sometime down the road, I could see it 5 to 10 years or something like that. And the need is now. I mean, especially for people that are trying to execute deal flow in different states. I mean, I don't want to have to go to 4 or 5 or 10 different lenders to try to find a different deal that will be funded, a different state that they can fund in. And so that's what we've tried to do is build a platform for investors, by investors, where it's a one-stop shop, and you can come to one place and have access. I think we have 132 lenders on the platform. And they bid for your deal, essentially. So
it's just going to grow. I mean, that was the way you described it to me. So, for agents out there, Lending Tree is probably a place you've heard of, and if not, some of your clients are going on there and they're saying, "Hey, I want to get a loan." And I think their slogan is when banks compete, you win, right? You're putting it on there, then all the lenders are going to compete against each other for the lowest price and that sort of thing. And you're doing the similar thing. But your point is, with hard money lenders, there's some lenders that are only going to lend, $5 or $6 million at a time, nationwide, but they have certain parameters. And so, but if they have all their money right now, they might offer lower rates than if they don't have as much to lend. And then being able to have somebody like I use a few hard money lenders, but right now I've got to reach out to them individually. And if I'm going to a different state, I've got to reach out to my other ones, just like that problem you said with Lending Home. And you guys want to be the guy that you're the only one they go to, that they say, "Hey, I need a loan on this." They send it to you. They put in the information. All the other lenders get together, and then they feed, quotes back through you. So you can say, "Here's your 3 hard money lender offers, and here's your best one. You're going to go with that."
That's right. Yeah. So the process would be you input 123 Main Street in Dallas, Texas, and one of our loan intake specialists will call you and say, "Hey, all right, based on your deal type and your state, these are the 4 or 5 lenders that will normally loan on something like that or lend money on something like that. These are their normal rates." And so you might see a lender that's offering 70% loan to cost at 7% in 1 point, which is really cheap money. But you have to put 30% down, and that's a lot of money to put down into a deal. All the way up to 90% or even 100% loan to cost, where it's maybe 10 and 3, let's just say 10% interest in 3 points. as an operator, a lot of times it makes sense to be able to choose. It's same thing that I was talking about, the time and money thing a minute ago, is, look, if I'm cash flow light, I'm going to go with the more expensive money because I don't have to put 30% down, right? But the flip of that is, the converse of that is, sometimes I've had a couple of really good closings that came up in a given month or whatnot, that it makes sense to get cheaper money because I've got the 30% to put down. So it allows the flexibility to choose based on not only the deal and the state, but also your circumstances. So,
yeah, man, I think that's going to be so helpful for so many people out there as the world is continuing to evolve, and being able to find that technology where you can plug and play and submit it. And now here's your options. And then the investor can now plug in those deals maybe into their spreadsheet and go, well, with this loan, I make this much money. With this loan, I make this much money. Because just like they all have their own box, which could be a pro and a con. Everybody knows, like, I usually do 90-day holds or 60-day holds or whichever. Right. So you could plug those in, figure out what's best for you. And for agents out there, this is another option for your buyers, right? So now your buyers, especially if you take some of what Matt said at the beginning, you start to learn to represent investors and get to go, do deals and find deals. This happens all the time where they get there and you go, hey, I found you a great deal. And I mean, agents, you may say, hey, I want to buy this myself. Right. And that's to a point where now there's a lender out there that could say, like, hey, yeah, you can, and this is how, and let's go through it. Or they could show you what your options are if you're able to get it yourself, or you can present it to your investors, that are making the offers. Say, hey, here's another option for you guys, because they might say, oh, I can't right now, I'm out of cash. Oh, have you thought about, using some of these other sources, whichever. So I really think what you're doing is it's really cool that you took a problem that you solved, that you kind of went through and learning through an agent and investor to see what people really needed. And now you're out there and you're providing this new one, and for listeners out there, to find it, to get kind of a special link to get on there and check out what Matt is doing and give it a try. Go to hibandigital.com. It's HIBAN digital.com/easy button. Now that's going to have the link to, this interview. It's going to have the YouTube link if you want to, see us on here. We'll have some extra tips and things on there. But there will be some special links inside there too. So you don't have to write any notes right now. Go to the special link, go find it. You can go check out Easy Button that way. You can go submit stuff or at least see what they have to offer. And then, we'll figure out what else we can share with you on there. So if Matt sends me anything else that we think is going to be interesting for you, we'll put it on that special link and you guys can see it. Matt, anything I'm forgetting, anything that people should be thinking about when they come find you?
Well, because it's such a unique offering, I do want to point out one thing, that we do have 10,000 plus loan types. And so for the agents that represent buyers in all walks, right, and all kinds of different industries and niches, you can buy hotels, gas stations, multifamily, retail space, fix and flip, 50 rentals, one rental. It's as long as it's business purpose, we likely can fund it. So just wanted to throw that in there as just kind of an additional thought, that it's not just the traditional fix and flip or the traditional rental. It's really anything and everything out there. I can't remember. We've got some funny things on our list. I don't even know why we have it on the list, but like a marina. If you want to buy a marina, we're your guy.
That's freaking awesome. Real Estate Rockstars, this will be an extra tool in your tool belt. Right? Being able to have something like this to be able to present and be able to represent your buyers better. It's just more options is good. Like when banks compete, you win, and being able to go in. And now when you're competing against other agents, you're like, hey, I've got some great sources for you to do this. So go to hibandigital.com/easy button. Check it out. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. As always, come chat with us. Give us some reviews. Let me know how we're doing as we're sharing content. We are committed to providing content for you out there. Real Estate Rockstars was, I think, the first podcast for real estate agents. It's the best and the biggest podcast focused on real estate agents, and we want to keep providing you great stuff. So hopefully you learned a lot from Matt today. Matt, thanks for being on and sharing so much knowledge, and I'm really excited to see what you get to do with your new venture.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me, Aaron. It was a pleasure, and look forward to doing it again here in the not too distant future.
Awesome. We'll definitely have you back.
Thanks.
Rockstar Nation, thank you for listening to Real Estate Rockstars. Listen, I need a favor. If you find this free content helpful, if you find our downloadable items from each guest helpful, please, I need you to pull out your pointing finger. Yes, the one finger that points at people, and hit subscribe. Yes, subscribe. The more subscribers we get, the better we look in the ratings, and the easier it is to get guests like Robert Kiyosaki, Barbara Corcoran, all the players that are on $1 million listing in the different cities. All that stuff makes it easier the more subscribers we get, so please subscribe. And listen, there's a lot of places you can leave comments. There's a lot of places you can like. We're on Facebook. We have an Instagram page. Instagram page is I am Pat Hyben. The Facebook is Real Estate Rockstars Radio. Feel free to leave us comments there. The most popular form of commenting seems to happen on YouTube. Yes, for whatever reason, it's a very open environment. So just go to YouTube and go to Real Estate Rockstars Radio. Leave us comments there. Some of them we will read on the show. We love your feedback. So thanks, guys, and I hope you are having a great day. Oh, and also, listen, if you're going to subscribe and you haven't already left a review on iTunes, please do that too. Have a great day, and thanks so much, Rockstar Nation. I really appreciate you.